The Marilyn Monroe Nymphomania mystery finally solved, and it isn't good. Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jean Mortensen on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles, California. Her beginnings were marked by instability and hardship, a stark contrast to the global fame she would later achieve. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, suffered from severe mental illness and was often unable to care for young Norma Jean. This meant a childhood spent largely shuttling between foster homes, orphanages, and brief, unstable stays with relatives or her mother during periods of remission. Norma Jean never knew her father, or at least, his identity was never definitively confirmed or consistently present in her life. This absence of a paternal figure, combined with her mother's illness and constant displacements, created a profound sense of abandonment and insecurity from her earliest years. She craved stability, belonging, and unconditional love, things a series of temporary homes and a troubled mother could not provide. She often felt unwanted, unseen for who she truly was, and desperately yearned for a sense of safety and permanence. This deep-seated trauma, the lack of a stable anchor in her childhood, would become a driving force throughout her adult life, shaping her relationships and her relentless search for external validation. At the tender age of 16, perhaps as a desperate attempt to escape the cycle of foster care and gain some semblance of stability, she married her neighbor, Jim Dougherty, a relationship that offered a temporary reprieve but was ultimately not destined to last. The path from Norma Jean Mortensen, the insecure girl yearning for stability, to Marilyn Monroe, the global icon of glamour, was a deliberate transformation, guided by ambition and circumstance. While working in a factory during World War II, spraying airplane parts, young Norma Jean was photographed by an army photographer taking morale-boosting pictures of female workers. Her striking looks caught the eye of photographers and model scouts, leading her to pursue a career in modeling. It was during this time that the conscious crafting of her image began. She dyed her hair blonde, changed her hairstyle, and underwent minor cosmetic alterations. She signed with a modeling agency and quickly found work. The next step was Hollywood. She signed a contract with 20th Century Fox in 1946, and it was here that she shed the name Norma Jean and adopted the moniker Marilyn Monroe, a name chosen to sound glamorous and memorable. Her early years in Hollywood were a struggle. She was signed, dropped, and re-signed by studios. She landed small roles, often playing the dumb blonde or the fleeting love interest. The studio system saw her potential as a physical presence, a captivating beauty, but often overlooked or dismissed her aspirations to be a serious actress. She was frustrated by the superficial roles and the industry's focus solely on her looks. The studio, recognizing the power of her unique blend of vulnerability and sensuality, began deliberately building her image as a sex symbol, a blonde bombshell, and this public persona, carefully curated by the studio and the media, became increasingly at odds with the complex, intelligent, and deeply insecure woman beneath the surface, adding another layer to the duality that defined her. She desperately wanted to be taken seriously as an actress, yearning for roles that would showcase her depth, a desire that often clashed with the industry's eagerness to package and sell her based purely on her potent visual appeal. Despite the early struggles and the frustration of being typecast, Marilyn Monroe's undeniable talent and charisma broke through. She began to land more significant roles in films like The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve in 1950, where even in smaller parts, she made a memorable impression. But it was a string of films in the early to mid-1950s that cemented her status as the ultimate Hollywood sex symbol and a global superstar. Films like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953, How to Marry a Millionaire, 1953, and The 7-Year Itch, 1955, showcased her comedic timing, her unique blend of wide-eyed innocence and overt sexuality, and her magnetic screen presence. The iconic images from these films became instant cultural touchstones. Audiences were captivated by her beauty, her vulnerability, and the alluring persona she projected. She was adored, desired, and intensely scrutinized, The public's fascination with her was insatiable. Yet, even at the height of her fame and desirability, Marilyn yearned for more. She knew she was more than just a body and a blonde wig. She sought to improve her craft, studying at the prestigious Actors Studio in New York with Lee Strasberg. Seeking the validation of being considered a serious actress, she even formed her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, to gain more control over her roles and career, a bold move for a female star at the time. This period was marked by both unparalleled professional success and a growing internal conflict. The struggle between the manufactured icon the world adored and the complex, intelligent, insecure woman she was trying to become. Throughout this time, her personal life, particularly her romantic relationships, remained a constant source of intense public fascination, speculation, and relentless media attention, setting the stage for the painful drama to unfold. While Marilyn Monroe captivated the world with her glamorous on-screen persona and seemingly effortless charm, her personal life was a tumultuous journey marked by a relentless search for love, stability, and a sense of belonging she never truly found. This quest often played out through a series of high-profile relationships, including 3 marriages that captivated and, ultimately, disappointed the public and Marilyn herself. Her first marriage to Jim Doherty at age 16 was, as noted, an escape from her difficult upbringing, ending as her career began to take off. Her second marriage in 1954 was to baseball superstar Joe DiMaggio, a beloved American hero. Their union seemed like a fairy tale pairing of 2 American icons, but it was short-lived and fraught with difficulty. DiMaggio was traditional, private, and reportedly struggled with the intense public scrutiny and the nature of Marilyn's fame and image. His jealousy over her status as a sex symbol and the constant attention she received led to clashes and ultimately, their divorce after only 9 months of marriage, though they remained connected in later years. Her third marriage, to renowned playwright Arthur Miller in 1956, seemed to offer Marilyn the intellectual validation and stability she craved. Miller was an acclaimed artist, a respected intellectual, and he represented a different world from the Hollywood she both thrived in and resented. Marilyn hoped this marriage would bring her acceptance as a serious person and actress, and provide the stable family life she had missed. However, this union also faced immense pressure and proved challenging. The clash between their worlds, Miller's struggles with her insecurities and public persona, and Marilyn's own internal turmoil led to difficulties. She reportedly felt she wasn't intelligent enough for him, and later found notes he had written that suggested he was disappointed in her, reinforcing her deepest insecurities. Their marriage ended in 1961. Even these 3 significant, public marriages could not fill the void within Marilyn. Her restless heart and profound need for acceptance led her to seek connection beyond the confines of matrimony. This was intertwined with deep personal struggles that significantly impacted her ability to form and maintain stable relationships. She grappled with chronic insomnia, severe anxiety, and bouts of profound depression, often relying on substances, prescription medications, and alcohol as crutches to cope with the immense pressure and her own internal pain. These dependencies further destabilized her life and made consistent emotional intimacy challenging. She also endured devastating reproductive issues, including miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies, which reportedly caused her deep sadness and a profound sense of loss, amplifying her existing vulnerabilities and fueling her desire for connection and comfort. It was within this whirlwind of personal instability, public scrutiny, and a perpetual search for love and belonging, often complicated by her own inner demons and the pressures of her career, that the Marilyn Monroe Nymphomania mystery was born. Her restless heart led her from one relationship to another, sometimes seeking solace, sometimes validation, sometimes simply a temporary escape from her overwhelming loneliness and anxiety. This pattern of seeking connection, particularly with men, became the basis for the dark rumors and speculation that followed her. So, what is the truth behind the speculation that one of the most desired women in history suffered from excessive, uncontrollable sexual urges? The idea of Marilyn Monroe as a nymphomaniac likely stemmed from several sources. First and foremost, her carefully crafted public image as the ultimate sex symbol. Her movie roles, her wardrobe, her public appearances, all were designed to highlight her potent sexuality. Second, the sheer number of relationships she had, both public and rumored, contributed to the speculation. In a more conservative era, multiple marriages and rumored affairs, especially for a woman, were often viewed with suspicion and judgment, sometimes labeled with sensationalistic terms. Third, the very environment of old Hollywood itself was rife with complex, often transactional, relationships, blurred lines between power and intimacy, and a constant undercurrent of gossip and innuendo that fueled rumors about everyone, especially its most vulnerable stars. But the real solution to the mystery, the truth revealed when we look beyond the surface and into the heart of Marilyn Monroe, is profoundly sadder and more human than any sensational rumor could ever capture. Her pattern of seeking relationships, of moving from one man to another, wasn't driven by some insatiable, pathological desire. It was driven by a fundamental, heartbreaking neediness stemming directly from the trauma of her childhood. It was a desperate, often misguided, search for love and acceptance, the unconditional warmth she was starved of as a child, hoping that if enough people desired Marilyn, it would somehow make Norma Jean feel worthy of being loved for herself. Security and stability, the safe harbor, the steady anchor absent from her unstable upbringing, yearning for a strong figure to provide the permanence she never knew. Validation, aching to be seen not just as a body, a blonde bombshell, but as the intelligent, complex, sensitive woman she was, seeking out men of intellect or power, hoping they would recognize the real Norma Jean hidden beneath the facade. Escape, a temporary reprieve from the crushing loneliness, the gnawing anxiety, the suffocating pain of her own inner demons. Relationships, fleeting connections, offered a momentary distraction, a fragile sense of being wanted, and perhaps, tragically, searching through a misunderstanding of intimacy, growing up without healthy models, potentially confusing physical closeness for emotional connection, mistaking desire for love, and the fleeting warmth of being wanted for true, lasting validation. Let's look at some examples, exploring how this search played out in her relationships beyond her marriages, and why the outcome was so often tragic. Beyond the husbands, Marilyn was reportedly involved with numerous men, some publicly known, others confined to rumors and biographies. These relationships, rather than providing solace, often reinforced her insecurities or exposed her to exploitation. There were relationships with powerful figures within the studio system and the broader entertainment world. In a time when casting couches were a grim reality, and careers could be made or broken by powerful men, Marilyn, with her vulnerability and desperate desire for better roles and respect, was undoubtedly exposed to situations where her relationships might have been transactional or exploitative. While specific definitive accounts linking exploitation directly to her nymphomania label are often speculative, the environment itself meant her relationships with powerful men seeking sexual favors in exchange for career opportunities were a real possibility, a deeply damaging scenario that would feed into her insecurities and sense of being used, not loved. Her search for validation and career advancement in a predatory system could easily be misread or deliberately framed as promiscuity. Then there were relationships with charismatic figures who offered excitement but no real stability. Frank Sinatra is a notable example. They had a complex, on-again, off-again relationship over many years. Sinatra was a powerful, magnetic personality, operating in a different world from Marilyn's usual circle. He represented a form of excitement and access. However, Sinatra was also notoriously difficult, controlling, and not a man known for providing emotional security or fidelity. Marilyn may have been drawn to his strength and his world, seeking a sense of belonging within his powerful circle. But the nature of their connection was reportedly volatile and ultimately unfulfilling in the ways she truly needed. It was a relationship built on mutual attraction and shared celebrity status. But it didn't provide the deep emotional safety or consistent love she craved, adding another layer of disappointment to her search. The most scrutinized, speculated upon, and potentially dangerous relationships were those rumored to involve political powerhouses, most notably President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. While the exact nature, duration, and depth of these relationships remain subjects of intense debate, speculation, and even conspiracy theories, the rumors themselves and the potential reality they suggest speak volumes about the dangerous territory Marilyn's search for connection led her into. According to widespread rumors and some biographical accounts, Marilyn was involved romantically with both JFK and, later, RFK. These relationships, if true, represented the pinnacle of power and influence. Marilyn, who yearned for intellectual respect and acceptance in the highest echelons, may have been drawn to their intelligence and authority, seeing them as potential saviors or validators. She may have sought in them the strong, protective figures she lacked in childhood, or the ultimate validation of being desired by the most powerful men in the country. However, these relationships were inherently secret, clandestine, and incredibly risky. For the Kennedys, any involvement with Marilyn was a massive political liability. For Marilyn, it meant navigating a world of secrecy, potentially being used or passed between brothers, and facing the constant, terrifying threat of exposure and scandal that could destroy her career and reputation entirely. According to numerous accounts, when Marilyn became too demanding, too emotionally reliant, or too much of a risk, the Kennedys abruptly cut ties with her. Being summarily discarded by men at the pinnacle of power, potentially after becoming privy to sensitive information, would have been devastating for someone with Marilyn's deep-seated abandonment issues and crippling insecurity. She may have felt used, betrayed, and utterly alone, with nowhere to turn and potentially fearing the consequences of what she knew. This alleged abrupt dismissal by the Kennedys, combined with her existing struggles with dependency, depression, and paranoia, is widely speculated to have contributed significantly to her final, rapid decline in the weeks leading up to her death. The immense stress, the feeling of betrayal, the lack of support, and the potential fear for her safety added to her already fragile state, creating a perfect storm of despair. This, then, is the heartbreaking solution to the nymphomania mystery. It wasn't about an uncontrollable physical urge. It was about a woman deeply wounded by a childhood without love or security, desperately searching for those missing pieces in relationships, often with men who were emotionally unavailable, exploitative, or dangerous. Her pattern wasn't promiscuity. It was a poignant, often misdirected, quest for belonging, validation, and safety. And the reason it isn't good? Because this quest, in the brutal environment of Hollywood and high society, frequently led her into situations where she was hurt, used, and ultimately left feeling more alone and more broken than before, contributing directly to the tragic circumstances of her final days. Her relationships were not a sign of excessive desire, but a symptom of profound, unmet need, exploited by others and ultimately catastrophic for her. The final years of Marilyn Monroe's life were marked by a visible decline, a tragic juxtaposition of her enduring public appeal and her escalating private torment. Her struggles with dependency on prescribed medications and alcohol, coupled with her deep depression and anxiety, made it increasingly difficult for her to work. She gained a reputation for being unreliable on set, often late or unable to perform. Film projects became harder to complete. She was famously fired from what would be her last, unfinished film, Something's Got to Give, shortly before her death. She became more isolated, her circle of trusted friends shrinking. The public relationships had failed, and the rumored secret ones had ended in ways that reportedly left her feeling abandoned and vulnerable. The constant pressure, the scrutiny, the inability to find peace or stability, and the physical toll of her dependencies took their toll. She was in therapy, attempting to work through her issues, but the external pressures and internal pain seemed insurmountable. Marilyn Monroe passed away on August 4th, 1962, at her home in Los Angeles. She was just 36 years old. The official cause of death was ruled as acute barbiturate poisoning, an overdose of the sedative medications she frequently relied on. While the official verdict was accidental overdose, her death has remained shrouded in controversy and conspiracy theories for decades, many of which involve the powerful figures she was rumored to have been involved with in her final months. These theories, fueled by the suspicious circumstances and the sensitivity of her alleged final relationships, underscored just how entangled her personal drama had become with potential danger. Her sudden death sent shockwaves across the globe, a collective gasp of disbelief and sorrow for the loss of such a vibrant, beloved star. Yet, for those who knew her struggles, it was a heartbreaking, perhaps inevitable, culmination of a life lived on the edge, consumed by internal demons and external pressures. Marilyn Monroe's legacy is complex and enduring. She remains an unmatched icon of beauty, glamour, and star power. Her image is instantly recognizable, a symbol of a golden age of Hollywood. But her story is also one of profound human vulnerability, a cautionary tale about the destructive forces of fame, trauma, and a world eager to exploit both beauty and brokenness. The so-called nymphomania mystery isn't, in the end, a mystery of excessive desire. It is the tragic story of a woman, deeply wounded in childhood, who spent her adult life desperately searching for the love, security, and validation she was denied. Her numerous relationships, far from being a sign of uncontrollable urges, were a symptom of this painful search. A search that often led her into situations where she was misunderstood, used, and ultimately left more heartbroken than before. Her difficult and often painful relationships, particularly those shrouded in secrecy and power dynamics, are a stark illustration of the harsh reality behind the Hollywood facade. They highlight the vulnerability of individuals navigating an industry that could be exploitative and unforgiving. Marilyn Monroe's life, including the drama and pain of her personal relationships, reveals the immense price paid for unparalleled fame and the tragic cost of a lifelong search for belonging that ended too soon. The solution to the mystery is not a simple answer, but a heartbreaking narrative of pain, loneliness, and a search that tragically proved to be not good at all. Her story remains a poignant, enduring reminder of the complex human being behind the myth, forever searching for a place where she truly felt loved and safe.